Heat got a huge win in Boston on Friday night. Uh, Game that was pretty much leaning in their direction late in the fourth quarter. Jaylen Brown hits a crazy shot, goes into overtime, and they ended up winning. Big game in terms of finding ways for the starting lineup playing together. All four, their core four guys, played really well on the same night, which we haven't seen in a while. Defensively, we saw things pick up because they went back to switching instead of zone, not letting them just shoot threes all night. They put pressure on Jason Tatum. He had a rough night. But I'm going to go through just the late game execution in general because it's funny because last season, their biggest issue all regular season was late game execution. They could not find the right base. They couldn't hit shots late in the game. Everything kind of went in the wrong direction. But when you think back to this year, they've been in a lot of close games and they've won a lot of them. They've figured out a lot of things late in games just because of the diversity, I guess, in their game plan. So I'm just going to go through some of these possessions from last night. So last night, starting at the 2-minute mark of the fourth quarter, tie game. We see Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo pick and roll being used a little bit. The goal here is that Bam's been aggressive. He's averaging 30 points a game over his last 4 games, but they're getting him going early in the game to get him into a rhythm, and they're also getting him going late in the game because he's one of their primary threats on the floor, which is a little bit of a different changeup than we're used to. So Tyler, Bam pick and roll. Usually when there's spread like this, if you look on the weak side, Kyle, Haywood, Highsmith, and Jimmy are lined up over there. You see Tyler, usually take to the left side in that empty corner, and they could kind of work something from there. But right here, you see them putting pressure in the middle of the floor because this way they can get it to Bam. You see Tyler can get it out, get it to Bam. He can sneak in. He ends up getting a much-needed dunk to kind of push them in the right direction offensively. Now, we see a little kind of slow double drag with Kyle setting a screen and popping out. And now Tyler and Bam can run another pick and roll. Much more spread this time than the last time. He reverses the screen. They double him, gets it inside to Bam. It ends up being a foul call. But the point here is that they're getting the ball into Bam at this point in the game. Like, they're really trying to get that ball to him in the middle of the floor because once that happens, the gravity starts pulling into the middle of the floor, and all of a sudden kickouts are happening, threes are happening, and everything kind of takes off from there. So now back to the defensive end. The Heat are up 1 minute to go. They get the Tyler Hero switch, something Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were doing a ton in this game. They wanted Tyler Hero on the floor guarding them because why wouldn't you when you have all these when you have the Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and even Haywood Highsmith on the floor? Of course you want Tyler Hero guarding you at this point in the game. But what you're going to see from Haywood Highsmith here, which he had an incredible defensive game and kind of just he closed in a game against the Boston Celtics with their core four players. He gets by Tyler here. Look at Haywood Highsmith's help. He just basically alters the shot by sending a double at the rim. Something the Heat were doing a ton of last night was they were going to switch and not let Tatum get open shots. But if he tried to get to the rim and try to blow past the point of attack, which happens frequently, they were going to double you at the rim right there late in the game. That was a pretty big play from Haywood Highsmith to make that double. Now we fast forward to the other side of the court. We see Kyle Lowry and Bam Adebayo about to work a little pick and roll right here. Funny enough, there was a point in the game where there was like 3 straight possessions where Kyle Lowry and Bam Adebayo ran a pick and roll. Something that's I've not been a fan of is like they basically just go to the Lowry Bam pick and roll and that only late in games at some points this season. But we saw diversity. Like I showed before, they were getting to the Hero Bam pick and roll because they saw an advantage with Bam on the roll. Now they're getting to the Lowry Bam pick and roll because late in the game, you want the ball in Lowry's hands to kind of facilitate and put it in the right spots. And I'm going to show a little bit later the third aspect of this, who else they're working the pick and roll with. So right here, though, they work it with Kyle Lowry and Bam. You're going to see him go to the left side, back to the right. But you're going to keep an eye on Jimmy Butler. The fact that they're putting Tyler Hero on, obviously Marcus Smart's on Tyler Hero, and they're putting him in that corner, so there's not going to be much help flying off from him. But Grant Williams is caught ball watching pretty much, and you're going to see what Jimmy does. Kyle, usually you're trying to flip dunker spots in the direction that the ball handler is going. You want to get to the other side, so then you're not just mucking up the paint when the guy drives. But Kyle Lowry is probably not going to go all the way to the rim for the bucket. So Jimmy makes himself available. Right when he goes to the right, Jimmy cuts with him. He can dish it off, and that's a big-time jumper right there on the baseline. But it's more about the connection. Like, we're not used to chemistry late in games for this Heat team a lot of the time because it's a lot of ISO ball. That type of just reaction and knowing where the other guy is, that stuff's just really important. Now we go down another point in this game, 1-point game, 13 seconds left. They need a bucket right here. Something we're used to late in games, another trend. Jimmy Butler is going to use guard screens. He wants smaller players on him. That's just what he's best at. He could fire over the top. There was like 3 games in a row where it was a close game late in the game earlier this season, and they ran the same exact action with Kyle or Gabe screening to try to draw that switch. and slipping screens. This game, we didn't see that. It was the exact opposite, actually. They started using Al Horford into the action because Jimmy wanted him guarding him. So you're going to see right here as I go back a little bit, you're going to watch Kyle basically waving his arms saying, Haywood, Tyler, get over here. Haywood, go screen for Jimmy. He gets the switch. Now they can all kind of pause. He gets around. This is just a tough shot. Like, this is nothing to overlook here film-wise. That's just a tough bucket, and he hits it. But it's more about what they're trying to get to, what defenders are trying to draw. Jaylen Brown ends up hitting a crazy shot, and here we are in overtime. 3 minutes to go now. More stuff on the defensive end. You see Tyler Hero. Once again, Jaylen Brown gets that switch. But what you're going to see is the difference in what we're used to last season when they draw the switch. It's pretty much, yeah, we're going to give you the switch for Tyler Hero, but if you try to blow by him and get to the rim, we're going to be sitting here. Like, we're not going to let you just absolutely just blow by the point of attack and get to the basket for lay-ins. That's what Haywood Highsmith did before, and then you can see what Jimmy Butler does right here. Blows by Tyler Hero. He's waiting for that and gets an incredible block at this point in the game to get a pretty crucial stop. Now, back to Bam Adebayo. They still were working him into a lot of things in the offense at this point in the game, which is a great thing to see. You see him get into that jab. You see him to a little turnaround jumper. And as I said the other day, talking about in the breakdown, that's his go-to shot. And when you see him doing that late in the game, that's just a pretty crazy thing to see. And the other thing I'll mention, something we're used to. You see where Jimmy Butler's standing on this play? We're used to that being Bam, and where Bam's doing, we're used to that being Jimmy. We're used to Jimmy doing the ISO kind of face-up stuff, trying to get to the basket or get to that little pull-up, and Bam's kind of flipping dunker spots. Now we're seeing them be able to do the opposite, and Jimmy's very good in that role as well because he can do quick things out of that dunker spot. So it's just different creativity, diversity in their game plan we're seeing throughout this game. Now another one, Jimmy Butler, as I said before, Tyler Hero, Bam pick and roll, we saw what they wanted to get to. Lowry, Bam pick and roll, we saw what they wanted to get to. Now we see the Jimmy, Bam pick and roll, probably the worst of the three, if I'm being honest, because shooters are usually better because they force them going over the screen more often. And this pick and roll, you're basically relying fully, as I say all the time, on Jimmy's pull-up. Well, it was falling at this point in the game. They run a Jimmy Bam pick and roll. He goes over. He fires over the top. Could have been a foul where he landed. He fires over Al Horford, and he hits it. Another possession right here after this. 50 seconds left. Jimmy Bam pick and roll. You're going to see him get the Al Horford switch, which he liked, but even better, he saw Bam get the Jaylen Brown switch. And Jimmy was absolutely screaming for Bam to look for the ball and post up because he wanted Bam to get the ball at this point in the game. That is a big-time development. Now, you see Tyler kind of edging up, and it almost hurt them the way that Marcus Smart now gets the help at the nail, but he ends up getting by it anyway. But something else I'm going to show is you're going to watch Jimmy after he clears out. This was probably the best part of this play other than the fact that Bam gets a face-up at this point. Jimmy looks like he's clearing this way. If Jimmy pauses in that dunker spot like he usually does, Al Horford has help at that side of the rim. But you're going to see Jimmy run, sprint through to get him out of there, and Bam can drive and ends up getting fouled. It almost hits it. But you see the way Al Horford and Jimmy just basically pulled Horford out of that play. That is just a massive read for Jimmy Butler to get Bam Adebayo that look late in the game. Now the final play I'm going to show. Same thing as I said before, late in the fourth quarter. Usually they go guard screen. Here we go again. They set Haywood Highsmith the screen to get Horford on him. He ends up just shooting over the top, gets a tough look to go. Big shots from Jimmy Butler, but we're seeing trends that they don't need to do the same thing. This isn't last year late in the games. They have different guys to go to. They have different actions to go to. And now that they have their guys back, they can actually switch late in the game. So these are just some trends that I picked up on with a pretty big win in Boston Friday night.